Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Command Point. My name's Ryan. Today, I'm here with Shane.
Hello.
And today, we are going to be giving you guys our reactions and our takeaways from the recent LVO Kill Team Championships event, of course, held in Las Vegas this past weekend. Let's just get straight into it here. In the top 8 for factions, we had Beckguard, Pathfinders, Harlequins, Warp Coven, and Commandos. There were a pretty substantial amount of players for each of these factions, except for the Commandos with only like 3 players out of a field of 40 players, I believe there were. Obviously, the LVO champion and the Kill Team ITC champion is Ace, a player from Spain who was absolutely dominating over in Spain with Beckguard. Made the journey out to Las Vegas, across the world, and just absolutely punched everybody right in the mouth and showed him what he could do with Beckguard. An absolutely dominant performance, nearly flawless victory.
Yeah, I mean, props to all the Spanish guys who, there was like 4 of them, I think, that flew all the way out from Spain just to participate in LVO. And obviously the main showcase being Ace here, who was their number 1 player, and I think undeniably at this point probably the best player in the world. He came out and proved it, so props to him again.
Yeah, congratulations. So let's talk about Beckguard for a little bit, because a lot of people sleeping on Beckguard until very recently. Ace was not one of those players. He was playing with Beckguard since I think when the Octarius box came out and they were doing kill team tournaments. You know, let's just get into what makes this team so special and so dominant.
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest thing to identify is 14 bodies, 12 activations. They have the most activations, almost, about tied, I believe, for the most activations that you can have for a team. And I think it seems in this edition that if you're out activating, that is a huge benefit for your team, because you get to kind of play a little bit reactively to what it is that your opponent's doing. And on top of that, 14 bodies is a ton. Almost all of them are specialists that have specific roles, and then you might have a few guys that aren't specialists, like the extra 4 guys you get. Just give them like crack grenades or something, and then you have 14 bodies, and almost none of them are like useless. They're all pulling their weight. They're all doing a specific job, and yeah, I mean, they're a deep team. It took people a long time to figure out how to master them, but I mean, we're seeing it here with Ace, who really made his name over in Spain, dominating with Beckguard, and he came all the way here to the US, to Las Vegas, and dominated once again with Beckguard.
The I guess the second place team, I guess we can call it, would be the Harlequins in this instance. So Harlequins, there were 4 players at this event, 2 of them making the top 8. Harlequins, we've talked about them before. We placed them very highly. We have placed them in S tier in our most recent tier list video. 8 bodies, 3 APL, high movement, you fly, you got a 4-up invulnerable save. This team is great. Why does it fall apart to Beckguard?
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say they outright fall apart to Beckguard. Maybe if the Beckguard player's Ace, it falls apart.
Yeah.
But in general, I think I've always said that Harlequins, they're so safe to take to a tournament, especially if you can take them to any tournament without even knowing what the terrain is, because stuff like Domino Field makes it so that Harlequins just do not care about the terrain. As long as they have cover, which you're usually going to have, they are perfectly comfortable. And on these LVO boards with a lot of dense terrain, they actually get to really utilize their flip belts and their fly ability. So the mobility that they have of being a 3 APL team is enhanced by the fact that they can fly over all these buildings that other teams can't. So yeah, I mean, we kind of said before that we thought that Harlequins were going to do well at LVO for that reason. I think they're going to do well at KTO as well for that reason. I just think that they are an extremely strong team, and I mean, on paper, it might seem like they do well against a team like Beckguard because Domino Field is going to shut down a lot of shooting, but you're going to have 4 more activations. in total with Veteran Guard, which is big.
Yep.
They could take grenades, which are really going to do a good job at shutting down that domino field. And one of the biggest tools that a Harlequin has against these horde teams is the ability to charge a model, kill it, and then shoot a different model after. But say you're playing against Vet Guard, you charge and kill a model. The Vet Guard player can pop In-Death Atonement. Now the Harlequin's stuck in combat. It can't shoot that other guy. And after the next activation, that Harlequin is just sitting out in the open, pretty much ready to get killed. So I think that Vet Guard have a lot of little tech and a lot of little tools that they have to deal with Harlequins that many teams don't have.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that even in a lot of matchups, I don't even think Vet Guard need to kill that many models in order to win, which is insane. Let's hop on over to Pathfinders here, switching gears. There were 6 Pathfinder players at this event. One of those teams was piloted by none other than Baronet 40K, who made the top 8 here. So 6 players, 6 different teams, only one made it into the top 8. We have them sitting at S++ right now in our tier list.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that only a single player managed to make it into the top 8 with Pathfinders?
Well, I think that Pathfinders are a bit like the same archetype of team as Veteran Guard, and we can kind of see how long it took for people to really hammer down and hone the Veteran Guard team and make them as strong as we've seen here at LVO. I think Pathfinders, like we mentioned in the tier list, they're not a super easy team to pick up and just win with. It's their ceiling that makes them so strong, and when they are played well, they have the tools to dominate any team, in my opinion, including Vet Guard. And if you want proof of that, you can look at the London scene, the London tournament scene, where we had a couple near major or majors where Pathfinders have completely dominated the top spots. We actually interviewed the first and second place players at a big tournament in London about a month back that both played Pathfinders, first and second place with that one team. They're insane. But I think the US scene just hasn't really picked up the faction yet. I mean, even Spain hasn't really picked the faction up yet. But when we do, I think we're gonna see the results of how strong the Pathfinder team is. I mean, even Baronet, who was the one player in top 8 here to take Pathfinders, up until like a month before LVO, he was playing Tyranids like religiously. So I mean, he came in a good player, only like a month of experience on the team, and he managed to finish 5th, which is pretty impressive when you think about it. So I wouldn't look too much into the results of Pathfinders only getting one top 8. We have no idea how experienced the players were that were taking them, or maybe they were new to the faction. I mean, the faction hasn't been out that long, and they're not the only really good team that performed a little bit under expectations at this event.
So moving on here, let's talk about the Warp Coven. So Warp Coven, just like the Harlequins, just like the Vet Guard, had 4 players apiece. 2 of them made it into the top 8. One of them was piloted by Ryan Wilfong, probably one of the best players on the East Coast, if not in the world. Actually, he came in 2nd place in the ITC, so congratulations to him. Warp Coven are good, but do you think that they are outclassed by teams like Harlequins and Vet Guard?
It's hard to say. I mean, they are, in my opinion, a team that has a really high skill floor and a really high skill ceiling. Before Wilfong, watching his games on stream, I'd seen people take Warp Coven and do well with them and impress with them. But what I saw from Wilfong, and if you're curious, you can go and watch his games on, like I watched and commentated his game on Saturday at LVO against Ace, where they ended up tying right down the middle through all the tiebreakers. And that was one of the best played games of Kill Team I've ever seen on both sides. So the Warp Coven, they are a really difficult team to, I guess, master. They have so many things so many options in the list building with all the sorcerers and the boons and the psychic powers, and then just the general team composition too. I mean, we saw a lot of Warp Coven players kind of default to 3 sorcerers, a Soul Reaper cannon, and 4 Zangors. But the problem with that team is you only have 8 activations, which against something like Veteran Guard, for instance, you're going to get out activated pretty badly. and they're going to be able to focus down some of your more important models. But what we saw from Wilfong was he ditched the Soul Reaper cannon, took 2 more Zangors, so he gets another activation from that.
Mm-hmm.
And one more activation doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually really huge. And he found ways to score the recon secondaries and tac ops that you have to take if you go more Zangors. So yeah, I mean, it's a hard faction to really properly rank because they are so difficult to play at a high level. But I mean, we saw it on stream against Ace in that Wilfong game that they can be played really, really well. So if you're curious about Warp Coven, I cannot recommend enough that you go watch that game. It is really interesting. I mean, he was doing things with a faction that I didn't even consider before, and it was really exciting.
Yeah, I think I said on stream that Ryan Wilfong is one of the most out-of-the-box thinkers in this game right now. Moving on now to the dark horse of this tournament, the Comarites. So, you and I have been high on Comarites for months. We've been saying, they can take down majors, blah, blah, blah. And they wound up making top 8 at LVO.
Yeah.
What do you think this says about the faction and about the state of the game in general?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We were talking for so long about how good they are. And like we were doing it in spite of the fact that Comarites all over the world at tournaments were just doing absolutely nothing. And they were just falling on their face. And finally, we like dropped them on our rankings. And then immediately after, they make top 8 at LVO. So we kind of saw it like day one when the Arcterius box dropped. I thought they were a top 5 team in the game. I think they really did kind of fall victim to power creep as the Chalnath box and the White Dwarf teams came out. But the tools are there. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen the Splinter Cannon and the Blaster, the Witch Fighters and Agile Gladiators. They have a high skill ceiling. You can actually play them at a pretty high level considering they're a compendium team that doesn't have the same options as a lot of the White Dwarf and Bespoke teams. So I'm not, I mean, I don't want to say I'm not surprised because I am a bit surprised that they made top 8, but as far as compendium teams go, I did believe in them for quite a bit, and I'm happy to see that someone did well with them. They are still a scary team. They've got some tools that are just like head scratching to deal with sometimes. Like I mentioned, Agile Gladiators and just the strength of some of their gunners on the Cabalite side. It's a tough team. They get 10 activations, so they're not actually being like massively overwhelmed by teams like Vetguard and Pathfinders, even if they are, a bit less potent in the end. I do like Comrades. I think they're a good team still.
All right, so that basically wraps up the video, but looking forward now to the Kill Team Open happening this month. There is a new faction that has recently been released, and that is, of course, the Wormblade. How do you think that the Wormblade are going to stack up at this event against basically the top 8? I say the top 8, really the top 5 factions that we saw at LVO.
I think Wormblade are really good. I think what makes them interesting is the fact that, in my opinion, they actually have pretty good matchups against a lot of the top teams. I've seen them do really well into Vetguard. I've seen them do well into Harlequins. I think they do well into teams like Commandos as well, and maybe Novitiates. I'm not too sure about that one, but I think they can do really well. They're their kind of team where I genuinely can see them taking a major if they're in the right hands. I'm curious to see what other Wormblade players are going to do. I plan on taking that faction to KTO, so I mean, hopefully that goes as planned. Yeah, I think there's a lot to say about that team. They don't get horribly out activated. They get 10 activations. You can make it 11, so they're not getting overwhelmed, like I mentioned. I'm really excited, and I think, not just to see what people do with them, but factions like Commandos and Novitiates that we consider to be really strong that didn't do amazingly here at LVO. I still think those factions are strong. My opinion hasn't really dropped on them post LVO that much, maybe on Commandos a little bit, but I I mean, I think most of the time you can't put too much stake in a one tournament result. Commandos are a really good team that everybody's gotten to play against a million times. They're the most played faction. If you're not playing as them, you've played against them dozens of times. Well, not dozens, but plenty of times. And I think novitiates, they're only about a month or two old. And I've seen them do really well in the CPTS, and I've seen really good players take them. So KTO, I think, is going to be really interesting. I mean, who knows? It could be a completely different top 8 faction-wise.
For sure, for sure. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I know that a lot of our viewers are going to be there as well, so we're looking forward to seeing all you guys there. Thank you all for watching and tuning in, and we hope to see you again in the next one.